Here's the real question. How do you raise a child with integrity without controlling them? How do you let them make their own mistakes, take their own risks, test their own boundaries, and still be the steady place they can come back to? This week wasn't about stopping my son from messing up. It was about figuring out where I step in and where I let life teach him. Because freedom without guidance is chaos, but control without safety just breeds secrecy. So I'm Francisca. This is my mid-crisis life, and today is Crisis Confessionals. So if you're navigating healing, parenting, and the messy reality of being human, subscribe. And if this hits, share it with someone who needs a safe mirror, not another lecture.
All right, so I thought today that we would have a little reprieve from my descent into depression, my just overwhelming self-loathing, wallowing in self-pity, trying to figure out what the fuck it is that I'm doing in life. Just that whole narrative, just that whole scenario. I thought we'd have a little break from it today. I thought it might be really good. I thought it would be good to have a little intermission. So I want to talk about something slightly different today. So I want to talk a little bit about my son. So anybody who knows me and anybody who watches these things will know that I've spoken about my youngest son, who is now 15 years of age. And, he's quite a remarkable young man. He's very emotionally mature, and he's got a real sense of awareness in terms of what he's going through, what he needs. You can tell that he's been brought up by me, right? To philosophize, to constantly talk about his feelings and to unpick things and understand things to a deeper level, and then execute the verbose and articulate explanation of what it is that he's thinking or he's feeling at any given time. And I really do love him. And, more to the point, I really do like him. There's a lot of people that say that they love their kids, but I always say that it's more important to like them. And I do. I really, really like him. I like hanging out with him. I like spending time with him. I like catching jokes with him. He's a really good friend to me. Not that he is, my friend or we're on the same level, but he is a really good friend to me. We have a really good relationship. And I think part of that reason why that is because it's bolstered on the fact that since he was young, I've been saying to him, this isn't like a hierarchy. We're just two people in relationship. And yes, I have a title, and yes, you have a title. And yes, that changes things because I have more responsibility than you, which means that ultimately I do have more rights. I have more ability. I have more experience to be able to make decisions that I think are going to be best for you and best for everybody. And yeah, it does mean that I get more choice about what we do in life because I'm the one that's paying for it. I'm the one that's bankrolling everything. I'm the one that's taking all the responsibility. But yeah, also it means that you kind of get to get away with not doing those things, with not having to be responsible for certain things because of your age and making mistakes and all the rest of it, right? But ultimately, we're just two people, and we're two people in relationship with one another. And I always say to him, just because I have a title, just because my title is mom, it doesn't mean, therefore, that without prejudice, you can do what you want and have an expectation that I'm just going to fulfill that role. If you treated a friend like that and then was like, oh, but by the way, can you, what's for dinner? If you spoke badly to a friend, if you lied to a friend, if you mistreated your friend and then was like, yo, but can you, you're making dinner, though, right? Cool, man, I see 6:30, just have it all plated up for me. No, that's not going to work, is it, right? So we have to just respect each other as two people in a relationship who are trying to love one another and trying to get on with one another. And I think, one of the reasons why he's so switched on as a person is because I've always had those conversations with him. I've never really belittled him. I've never really treated him like a child, other than, understanding that his emotional capacity is that of a kid, and his vulnerability is that of a kid, but his capacity to understand, his capacity to learn, the potentiality of him to be able to do that is never, I don't think, is limited in any person, right? If you can speak to somebody. And even when he was a baby, with both my kids, I never did the whole baby babble talk. Once they were cognizant and had some level of comprehension and had some level of objectivity and what's it called? And their superego was enacted or activated, right? So they realize the things that I do have effects on people around me, and the things that people do have effect on me. I can influence what's happening outside of me. Once they could do that, then we had conversations and we broke it down and we spoke about these things. Anyway, so I really, really love him. And he's a really amazing person. And I really just champion him really with everything that he wants to do. He's ridiculously intelligent. He's ridiculously talented. Pretty much everything that he tries to do, he's just amazing at it. And that has its issues because it makes him lazy and he never really has to work for anything, which I'm kind of seeing the what's the word? The consequences of that now. But to all intent and purpose, I really like him as a person. And there's a reason I like him, because he's like me, right? Basically, I've just created my own little protege. But no, I do really like him as a person. Anyway, recently, what with being a teenager, what with wanting to go out, what with all of these new temptations, this whole new world that's opened up to him of like, socializing and partying and going to motives down the park and like, drinking and smoking and all the rest of it, right? This is where he's been. Now, I have no interest whatsoever in micromanaging my children. I have no interest in controlling what they do, in trying to avoid them experiencing any harm, experiencing any danger, taking any risks. This is not how I parent. Because I don't feel like it sets you up for life, right? And I don't feel like it's real, and I don't feel like it builds emotional resilience, and I don't feel like it builds executive functioning either. The ability to make decisions, the ability to analyze information, and then make a decision about what it is that you want to do with that. And I don't think it allows you to learn who you are, right? Because a lot of the time we don't know who we want to be until we've realized, oh, I don't want to be. I tried out that person. I definitely don't want to be that person. That person's a bit of an arsehole, right? So let me try and be someone different. So yeah, I'm really not about micromanaging my kids. But that being said, Callum's behavior recently has given me like pause for concern, right? So my dad used to have a couple of sayings that he used to say all the time, right? So the rules in my dad's house, there were three rules. That was it. Yeah. And these rules pretty much encompassed everything, right? So the first rule was, do as I say, not as I do. That was his first number one rule. That is it. Yeah. The second rule was, I am right. Even when I'm wrong, I'm right. And the third rule was, if all else fails, go back to rule one. Do as I say, not as I do, right? And I think as a child, and particularly as a teenager when I lived with my dad, that felt like a really draconian way of parenting. It was like, I can fuck up as much as I want, and you can literally watch me do it, but you don't do it, okay? And it's weird because, kids do learn from example. They don't learn from being told, they learn from example. And it's really interesting because my dad had a couple of other rules, right? So those who do not hear must feel. Those who do not hear must feel. And he would say that when he was bringing down the gauntlet. It's like, well, those who don't hear must feel, so now you're going to feel, right? And it just always felt really unfair. And the other thing that he used to say a lot was, the decisions you make today affect tomorrow. The decisions you make today affect tomorrow. And I can remember just rolling my eyes when I was a kid, listening to him spouting this like generic cookie cutter parenting bullshit, right? But here's what I learned, is that actually a lot of his rules make a lot of sense. Yeah. Do as I say, not as I do. I remember he spoke to me about it when I was older, when I was an adult. And he said it wasn't about me just being able to get away with what I want and telling you that you needed to do differently. It was about me knowing that I was flawed as an adult, knowing that I had vices, knowing that I was going to make mistakes because of who I was and because of the unhealthy patterns that I was in already, because of the way that I was brought up, because of the compulsions that I wasn't able to stop. And I knew I was going to do that. But you had a blank slate. You had the opportunity to do different. So there's no point just following and copying someone who maybe isn't able to have control over themselves. Now, I don't know how I feel about that in its entirety, but I understand the principle of it alone, because I do feel like we should take responsibility, and I do feel like we are able to change. But, a lot of people don't feel that that's the case. A lot of people feel like their behavior is set in stone and there's nothing they can do about it. That's definitely not my belief system. But I understand the principle of it. The idea of, I'm always right, even when I'm wrong, I'm right. Again, it just felt like he was just being like, well, I can do what I want and you lot have no power and there's nothing that you can do and there's nothing that you can say about it because I'm right. Even when I'm wrong, I'm right. Where do you go from there, right? But at the same time, when we spoke about it again when I was older, what he said to me is this. He said, I'm not righteous. He said, I'm right. Everything that I ever did for you came from a place of me trying to love you, came from a place of me trying to protect you, of me trying to teach you, of me trying to guide you, of me trying to stop you from getting into certain situations. Like, even if I got it wrong, even if I made a whopper of a mistake as a parent, it never, ever came from the wrong place. So it may have turned out that I was wrong in my decision making, but I was still right in my intention. And I think it's true, right? I think it's true. I think me as a parent, I definitely do feel that way. And I think a lot of parents do feel that way as well. The whole those who do not hear must feel, I know loads of people have heard this, right? And most parents, most kids who've heard that saying will know that they're going to hear it before they get a beating, before they get a whoop down. Like, well, you didn't hear, so now you're going to feel. My dad never really hit us as kids, like maybe on a few occasions, like when, to be fair, I kind of deserved it. But he wasn't a person who would just, beat us randomly and be like, well, you're feeling it now. But the thing is, this is true. It's true. What he said is true. If you're not going to hear the warnings from yourself or from somebody else, if you're not going to take heed of the times when you've just about got away with something, or, you did something really bad or you made a really bad choice, and then, this big catastrophic thing that should have happened, but actually it's just a tiny little thing, and this is a warning, you're getting your warning, you're getting your warning. If you can't hear that, if you can't take heed of that, then in the end, you will feel. Life will create a scenario where it is catastrophic. You keep doing the same thing and you keep getting away with it, or you know that it's wrong and people are telling you that it's wrong. And then if you keep on doing the same thing, then you will feel. Or if you keep on going back to a situation that's unhealthy, and you know it is, and everybody else is saying that it is, then you will feel it in the end. And I feel like life works like that generally. I feel like life just keeps on bringing the same lesson to us until it really hurts, until it devastates us. And then we say, oh, yeah, I don't think I want to do that anymore. But it's because we had to feel it, right? We never felt it before. Once we feel it, then we will change. And the decisions you make today affect tomorrow. Oh, what a pompous thing to say to a child. But it's so true. It's so true. Make your own decisions. If they're shitty decisions, then in the future, you're going to be in a shitty situation. Simple as that. If you make good decisions, then in the future, you're going to place yourself in a good situation. Really, it's as simple as that. Just all of these choices that you think aren't going to matter, that you think aren't going to be that big of a deal, and you're kind of getting away with it now, all of it compounds into the future that you're creating. So it's true. But see, here's the difference, right? My dad used to spout off all this stuff when he was lecturing us for like 4 or 5 hours at a time. Like, we'd have to stand still while he literally gave us a lecture. I'm surprised there weren't small breakout rooms and seminars after my dad had got finished with us. He really did like the sound of his own voice, and I think I'm very much his own child in that way, right? Because here I am. Anyway, he used to do that, and it was really good advice, and it is meaningful, and there is depth to it, and there is a principality about it, and they are words to live by, for sure. But I think the difference is that it was really good advice, but there was no real connection underneath it. There was no real care that came with it. There was no real trust in us as children or in himself as a parent. And I think really underneath all of that, what I'm trying to say is that even though all of that was there was no safety. So he was not a safe space throughout childhood to try these things out and to make mistakes. So the rules were hard and fast, and the judgment that came with them was unrelenting, and it was completely conditional. I've told you, do as I say, not as I do, and here you are doing as I do. So punishment, right? And that's the thing, right? Teenage life, adolescence, really from the point at which you're 7 and you become more conscious about who you are and who you want to be, and that there's a world out there that's interactive and that you literally can influence and create your own reality, right? You learn that from a very, very young age, but definitely at adolescence. I think it's the first time that you're really asserting your individuality, your own agency, your own autonomy in your life, and you're saying, this is who I am. This is who I am. Up to now, I've been who you want me to be. Now this is who I am. And a lot of the time it's really hilarious because teenagers just swing to the literal opposite of whatever it is that they've been. So if they've been a really nice and kind and caring child who's always fetching and carrying for you and what you need, mummy, blah, blah, blah. And then they hit 12 and they're just like, fuck you. I'll never do anything for you again. I'm not your slave. Because they have to be the opposite of what they've been. They have to swing all the way to the other side in that really extreme way to assert themselves. And it's funny and it's ironic because being the opposite is basically just being the same. You're just the same, right? You're not unique, you're not different, you're not something new. You're just the polar opposite of what you've been previously. And they swing back and forth, until they get to a point that's a little bit more balanced, right? And that's that whole process of knowing like, oh no, I actually don't want to be that person. I don't want to be that extreme person who says, I will never help you again. I'm not your slave. I want to help my mum. Actually, I love her, you know? So maybe we don't need to go that far. Let's try out some other hats and then slowly and surely, but come to a little balance here. And I think that it's a really difficult time for parents because kids are going through that process, and because that process really you don't want to interrupt it, because that's the process of finding yourself. It's the process of finding who you are, right? And I think that there's a really big need as parents to trust our children, to trust ourselves that we've done enough, that we've input enough, that we've implemented enough within them for them to be able to make those decisions and come back to that balance, even if they seem to be like over here. And yes, of course, there are risks involved and we have to make a decision about how much risk we want our child to take. But I think that being that safe space, being that base for them to be able to come and say, I did this and I tried this and I fucked up over here. Can you help me? Like, what do I do? Can you give me some advice? Can you ease some of the pressure, whatever it is, right? I think that's the more important thing than specifically what risks our kids will and will not take. Being able to have those conversations and talk to us beforehand, during, afterwards, right? These are the things that create safety around the outside of your child doing all of that, right? So I'm a parent who very much believes in consequential based learning. So consequential based learning, and I think I'll talk about it a little bit more in Monday Mindset, but consequential based learning is as simple as this. Hey, do you want to put your coat on? It's cold outside. You're going to need a coat. No, I don't want a coat. You can't make me wear a coat. I don't need a coat. Don't tell me what to do. All right, cool. Don't wear a coat then. And then you go out for 4 hours and your child's like, please, I'm so cold. Like, yeah. Like, it's not throwing it in their face. Well, I told you you should live. That's why you need to listen to me because I know everything. You should be wearing a coat and now you're freezing. Ha ha ha. No, it's just about saying, no, I understand you're cold. I really do. And then the next time you go out and you say, hey, babe, do you know, I think you might need a coat. It's going to be cold. Your child goes, yeah, yeah. I think that might be a good idea. Let me put my coat on. And that's really what consequential based learning is. It's like understanding that there are consequences to your decisions and learning or not learning from them, right? So that leads me to today. Yesterday, in fact, I took my son to the dentist. He had to have 2 teeth extracted in his top jaw because he's got overcrowding and he's got braces, and the orthodontist said that he needs to have some teeth taken out. So I took him yesterday. They gave him anesthetic. He was a little bit woozy, whatever. So he didn't go back to school. That's fine. Came home. He's asking me, can I go out? I asked the dentist. I was like, he wants to go out. Can he go out? She's like, well, you can go out, but you need to take it easy. Okay. He also wants to drink alcohol while he's out. What do you think of that? She's like, well, I think alcohol would probably be a bad idea. You've got 2 holes in your mouth, in your gums. It needs to heal. You don't want to get infection. It's probably not the best thing to drink. So he comes home and we have a conversation about it. No, Mama, I'm going to go out. I'm taking my friend with me anyway, who's never been before, and I really need to look after him. He was supposed to come and stay over. So, I'm going to stay sober so that he can have a drink. Like, don't worry, man. You can trust me. He turns back up at my house at 10:30, storming through the house. Callum, come here. Let me look at you. Comes in. Like, you've been drinking. Like, it's really obvious. No, I haven't. Like, yeah, you have. I'm not going to argue with you about it. Yeah, you have. You've been drinking, which is just really stupid and irresponsible. Anyway, he storms off saying, well, my relationship is over, so I can't have this conversation with you now. All right, cool. So I left it 15, 20 minutes. I went in and I spoke to him, what's going on? Basically, he got drunk and he kissed someone else. And it's not the first time that he's done it. It's actually the 3rd time that he's done this. And it's the 2nd time with the same girl. And this girl on this occasion got pissed off that not only did he cheat on his current girlfriend by kissing her, but that he then also had the audacity to kiss the girl that he cheated with's friend in the same night. So the girl that he cheated with texted his girlfriend and was like, hey, let me tell you what's going on. Today's Valentine's Day, right? And this is the situation that he's found himself in the day before Valentine's Day. Now, I mean, to say that I'm disappointed is an understatement. To say that I'm upset is an understatement. To say that I'm angry is an understatement. I'm actually lividly disheartened and disillusioned by that behavior. I'm just like, who are you? Right? Who are you and what are you doing? Right? Oh man. Here's the thing though, right? I think as a parent it's really difficult, sorry, it's really difficult to find the balance, right? To find that balance of, I want to trust that I've done enough and I want to trust that you're going to make good decisions. I want to trust that you're going to be able to come and talk to me about the things that are going on. I want to trust that you know how to learn from the decisions that you've made. And I want to trust that if you don't hear, then you will feel, you know? I want to trust that the decisions you make today, you know that they will affect tomorrow. So it's like, how do I have the balance of all of those things? How do I keep a safe space and at the same time teach my son integrity? How do I have belief and trust that he can make a good decision without intervening at some point in order to teach him, really, to show him what it means to have integrity? How do I have a safe space for him, but also show him that what he's done is a fucking violation? Like, it's a violation on all counts. Like, you lied to me, you disrespected me, you then lied to my face when you got home, you broke your promises, you then broke your promises to your girlfriend, you violated her, you disrespected her, like, you disrespected the girl that you were kissing who isn't even your girlfriend. Like, what the fuck, man? Like, it's just really bleh, bleh. It's disgusting behavior. It's like, how do you find all of those balances? Like, where do you get involved? To what extent do you lecture or do you punish? Like it's a really hard balance to manage, right? To find. I think the easiest way to do it is to just know two things. To know two things really, really clearly as a parent. And that is, firstly, to know your triggers, and secondly, to know your values. My son cheating on someone is a very triggering thing for me. I've been cheated on in most of my relationships, and it was devastating. In fact, it's not even most of my. I've been cheated on in like all of my relationships. Thinking about it, like, yeah, like literally every single one of them, I've been cheated on, and that's more about my choice of partner and my own levels of self-worth and self-esteem and self-value and all the rest of it that caused me to be in relationships like that. But aside from that, someone being a cheat to me is a really deplorable type of human being. It's something that really, really triggers me emotionally, or has the potential, I would say. Yeah, I would say that it has the potential to be really, really triggering for me. Now, if this was me even 7 or 8 years ago, I might not be consciously aware of how much I am triggered by this particular subject. And my decisions and my responses and my parenting of my son would very likely come from that place of um, unconscious anger, of unconscious fear of all the ways that I've felt violated by somebody doing that to me. But because I'm aware of that, and because I'm aware that that particular issue is more about me than it is about him, it allows me in a lot of ways to not be emotionally attached to it, to not be emotionally triggered, for there to be no emotional energy around this particular thing. So it can be more of a learning situation, and it can be more of an honest conversation with him. And what I spoke to him about was two things, really. I said, from my own experience of being cheated on, number one, the thing that really, really hurts is that you've given the power to humiliate me to somebody else. You've given the power to some random chick to be able to destroy me. You've given someone the power to be able to laugh at me behind my back, to be able to say, this girl doesn't know, she thinks that her boyfriend loves her, but he doesn't. You know why? Because he was all up in my DM. He was all up in my, like, why are you giving that power? Like, you haven't even had my permission. You didn't get my consent. You just took my power. You took my right to have that and gave it to somebody else. And that's the first thing. And then the second thing is that what you do when you cheat, what you do when you break trust, is you show that person that you're no longer safe. I said, your girlfriend wants you to be a safe place. She wants to feel as though with you, she can just let go. She doesn't have to be something or do something, that she can just relax and that you're going to hold her and that you're going to keep her safe. That is your job as a man in a relationship. That's what women want to feel. They want to feel held. They want to feel safe. You're no longer a place of safety. You're a place of risk. You're a place of concern. You're a place of worry. You're a place of like insecurity. And that is not easily fixed, if ever. I don't know how someone goes back to being a safe place after they haven't, right? And those are the things that I spoke to him about, rather than it being, it is from my experience and it is from the things that I went through, but there's no emotional charge to it. So I think it's really important, firstly, to know your triggers. And then I think, secondly, it's really important to know your values. I think there's so much that we could pick up on as parents, and knowing your triggers allows you to understand, well, why am I reacting to this particular behavior rather than the 1,000 other things that my kid did this week? This one thing, like, I feel like, no, you can't be doing that. Why is that? Oh, because it's triggering you, right? Because it's personal to you. And I think it's the same thing with your values. If you know fundamentally what you want to teach your child, what you feel in your estimation are the most important things that you can instill into another human being to give that person the best chance that they can possibly have in life, then, sorry, someone's knocking at the door. So if you know what your value base is, what are the fundamentals of what you feel like it is needed to be a well-rounded, well-grounded individual in this world that's going to help you, then anything else that doesn't really teach that, you can kind of let it go, right? You don't need to focus on it. You don't need to pick up every single thing. You don't need to talk about every single issue. You don't need to learn them like all the time. For me, integrity is one of the most fundamentally important values that you can have as a human being. I feel like it's so deep to have integrity with others, to have integrity with yourself, to have integrity in your life. Like, it's one of the most important things that you can do, right? And for me, that's a value that I feel like every person should learn. And if I'm going to be a parent, then I'm going to teach that sort of value to my child. So really, it's more about that. But going back to what I was saying right at the very beginning about my dad and having these rules and knowing that they're true, I had a really harsh conversation with my son, and I was very honest with him about what I thought. I was very honest with him about all the lip service that he's giving to everybody at the moment. I was very honest with him about his I don't know, like, he's got a nature where he's learned how to speak in a certain way, to respond in a certain way, because he's learned it from me. But he's using it to manipulate people. He's using it to get what he wants. He's using it to avoid responsibility, to lessen accountability. And that's the way that he wants to use his power. And we had a very honest conversation about that. We had a very honest conversation about the fact that clearly, from the things that I've heard and the things he said to me before, he likes attention from girls. And I think that it comes from a lack of self-esteem. He wants something. He doesn't feel good enough, and he wants the external validation. And if that is truly who you are right now, don't go and make false promises to your girlfriend. Like, just leave it. Just leave it alone. Like, just be honest about who you are, and then make decisions based on that. And maybe in 5 years, you might be ready to settle down and be in a relationship and be doing all the relationship stuff, right? But right now, maybe that's not who you are. So we were able to have a really difficult conversation, and me be really clear with him that I don't trust him at the moment, that I don't believe him at the moment, that he has broken trust and he's broken his promises to really important people so that he can go and hang out with people who he's told me before have disrespected him. Like, what are you doing? Like, and I know he felt bad and he cried, and he doesn't often cry. He doesn't often show emotion. He's very stoical in a lot of ways, but it did really affect him. Anyway, I made the decision to let him go and see his girlfriend to try and work things out. And I gave him a limited amount of time that he was able to do that in. And this is it. This is all you get. And you get it because I'm not an awful person, and because I'm not going to make you sacrifice your relationship because you've made mistakes, But before he left, I called him in, and I just said to him, look, I've said a lot, and I am angry with you, and I stand by everything that I said. Like, I really do. I wouldn't have said it otherwise. But what I do want you to know is I want you to know that I do love you. There's nothing that you could do, and there's no one that you could be, and there's nothing that you could say that would ever make it so that I don't love you. I really do love you. I'm just very disappointed in you, and I'm always here for you, and you always have me. And do you need a cuddle? Because you're going through a lot right now. And he just threw himself into my arms and he sobbed. He sobbed because he's really brokenhearted and he feels really bad about what he's done. And I think that's the difference, right? That I think being a good parent and holding your child is about not being intrusive. It's about letting them make their own mistakes. It's about minimizing risk by being aware of what's going on. It's about knowing what your triggers are and whether you're responding to your trigger rather than your child. Knowing what your values are so that you know whether or not the things that you're doing or saying are actually promoting the values that you think are most important. And underneath it all, whatever decisions you make, being a safe space to your child, like being a safe fucking space to him. So yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about today. Something that I'm really grateful for. I think I'm really grateful for having really bad examples as parents. Oh, I think I'm grateful for having really bad examples as parents and it being really fucking clear and obvious that they were very bad examples, to know to do something different and to want to do something different. So yeah, I would say that. And come back tomorrow for Monday Mindset. We're going to talk a little bit more about parenting, a little bit more about consequential based learning, a little bit more about knowing your triggers and knowing your values and how to implement that as a parent. So yeah, I hope to see you there.
If this episode meant something to you, subscribe for the rest of this week. Monday Mindset goes deeper into parenting, triggers, values, and consequential based learning. Drop a comment with what landed, and I'll see you in the next one.